Good morning. Today we're going to read Chapter 8, Treatment of Prisoners of War. Prisoners were given only 1 cup of water a day below decks. The rations, issued only in the morning and only half those received by British soldiers, were largely inedible leftover food from England that was old, stale, and in many cases, rotten. It was not until the 19th century that supplies for captives were expected to be provided by their captors. During the Revolutionary War, their own army, government, and families attempted to provide for the prisoners. Chapter 18. When they reached the other side of the river and made their way to Abner's wagon, Samuel found Annie asleep, curled up next to Abner's collies. "Annie," he touched her shoulder to wake her. She opened her eyes and threw herself into his arms. He staggered backward under her weight and turned to his parents. "This is our Annie," he said. His mother reached out and stroked her hair. "Annie, I always wanted a little girl." "I had a ma," Annie told her, "but then I didn't." She smiled shyly, even as the tears welled in her eyes. "And now you have a ma again," Samuel's mother whispered through her own tears. "And a pa," Samuel's father said, as he stepped next to her. Abner cleared his throat and started to hook up the mules in the light of the slit lantern. "No sentries this side of the river," Matthew said. "Just stay to the main road north for a time." He handed them a cloth bag. "Emily fixed food for you to take. Good fortune to all of you." "I don't know how to thank you," Samuel's father said. "You men have given us back our lives, restored our family." "Help when you can," Matthew said. "We all need to help. I will go back to the boat now and across the river again. There might be others I can reach before daylight." And he was gone, and with him the dim glow from the lantern. "Here now," Abner said. "Everybody inside the wagon except Samuel. Samuel, you come up and ride with me. We must talk." With his parents and Annie in the wagon, Samuel felt his way up to the front and climbed up in the seat. In near silence, Abner made a soft clucking sound with his tongue, and the mules started pulling the wagon up the road. Even with the uproar across the river, there was nothing moving on this side. They progressed in quiet for half an hour or so. The mules, Samuel saw, had no trouble seeing the road in the darkness. Were they like cats? Aside from a bump and a rut now and then, it was comfortable. The rain had let up a bit. Samuel's rifle and powder were inside the wagon, covered, so he had no concern on that level. "We cannot stay together," Abner said suddenly. "All right," Samuel said, startled. "But why?" "Too dangerous. If we were stopped before, I could say you were my grandchildren. Now, with your mother and father here, that won't work. There would be questions, and with them, danger. I'm afraid we'd be taken prisoner in spite of my passes, so we must separate." "I understand," Samuel said, nodding, though in the darkness Abner could not see it. "You've already done enough, more than enough. I never thought I would see them again, and you have given them back. Well, thank you. We all do what we can. Now here's the lay of it. We got 3 more hours on this road. It'll get light in 4 hours. We'll be back in the forest, or almost at that time. Enough for you to have cover. You leave me then and take the forest straight west for 2, maybe 3 hours. Your father will be slow for a time. There you will come on a large swamp. Just before you get into it, turn left and go southwest toward Philadelphia. It's safe there. You'll be about 7 days' travel from town. Here, take this." He handed Samuel something in the darkness, a small brass object like a watch, a compass. "Don't you need it? Take it." "Thank you again." "Southwest," Abner repeated. 7 days walking, maybe 8. It's near on 90 miles to Philadelphia, and you'll find trails to help you along. As your father gets stronger, you'll move better." Samuel sat in silence, thinking. "That's the good news," Abner said. "Now for the bad." Somewhere along there, nobody seems to know exactly where, although it was thought to be down in Trenton for a time, there will be a place where the British have a defensive line. You might not even know you're going through it, but you may run into the redcoats. They'll be a mite jumpy and will probably shoot before talking, so avoid them if you can. If you see them at all, stay straight southwest. Don't fall toward the south over by the main road. That's where they'll be. Southwest. Samuel was silent, mesmerizing Abner's instructions. Then he said, "Thank you. There aren't words to. I said that's enough. Now, I don't know what Matthew's Emily put up for food, but try to get you something with a lot of fat into your father. Fat is where the power is. Red meat and fat." Maybe some raccoon, or if you can, a bear along the way. Thick meat. It's going to be hard for him to walk 90 miles. Be patient. Again, Samuel nodded. Yes, I will. And with your mother too. She's very strong, but this is different. They're going to try to be your ma and pa, but for now, you have to be the leader. They don't have the knowledge for what's coming. You do. And one more thing. Take an extra blanket. And then silence, except for the sound of the mules clopping along and their breathing. They met no one, or at least didn't see anybody in the pitch darkness. After a time, Samuel realized he could make out the white markings on the dog. About then, Abner pulled the mules to a stop. Out here, he said. Remember, west to the swamp and then southwest. Yes, and again, enough, away. Samuel jumped off the wagon and went around to the back. In the dim light, he motioned to them to get out. Annie came out of the back, half asleep. Samuel found the food, 2 bundles, and he gave one to his mother and the other to Annie. Next, he tied a blanket to his bedroll and pulled it up over his shoulder. Then he located his rifle and powder horn, checked the priming in the quarter light, and found it to be good. As soon as he said all right, Abner clucked at the mules and in a moment was gone in the morning mist. We didn't get to say thank you, his mother said. We can't talk now, Samuel said later. Now we have to get moving. Are you all right to walk, Father? Yes, maybe a little slow. We'll see. Good. Follow me. And again, we can't talk. He set off without really thinking. He'd been away from the woods and sitting in the wagon for days out of his element. His body was sick of it, wanted to move, and he took off at a near lope. Annie held the pace as she had when they'd been traveling together before, but within 30 yards his father gasped, Samuel, I can't. His mother was out of breath and limping, but she didn't complain and tried to help support his father. Samuel slowed them, but he wanted to be well away from the road before stopping, so he kept them moving for over a mile. The sun was near enough to the horizon, then to shed light everywhere. Even through the clouds, he stopped in a small clearing, unrolled his bedroll, and took out the moccasins he'd made those days sitting in the wagon. Father, try these on, he whispered. Can we talk now? His mother also whispered, but he shook his head. Not yet. 2 more hours. He continued whispering, Annie, I will walk in front, you in the rear. If I stop, we all stop. Not a sound. If I go down, you all go down. Again, not a sound. Annie, every 40 or 50 paces you turn and listen with your hands cupped to your ears. If you hear something strange or that bothers you, whistle softly. Then we all stop. Is that all clear? Yes, his mother started, but he put a finger to her lips. We are still in danger. Great danger. Please, for now, just do as I say. She smiled at him and rested her hand on Annie's shoulder. He turned to his father. Can you hold a slow pace for 2 or 3 hours? His father nodded. I'll do it. Then we go. Samuel started off, this time at a much slower pace and as quietly as possible, moving along game trails when he found them, below the top of ridges, if there were any, so he couldn't be silhouetted against the skyline, stopping every 40 or 50 paces for Annie and Samuel, and to listen, to watch, to know if anyone was following them. His parents and Annie obeyed him, and they moved, if not rapidly, at least steadily, until Samuel looked down and saw water seeping into his footsteps. The edge of a swamp lay ahead of him. He found another clearing on slightly higher and drier ground and let everybody sit while he dug food out of one of the packages. It was slabs of venison, but with little fat, and corn dodgers, cornbread made into small muffins. They had some lard in them, but not much. He fed the others and pretended to eat, but put it back. There was still a long way to go, and unless he killed something, they would need all the food they could save. All right, he spoke low, almost in a whisper. A short rest, just a few minutes. Then we start southwest. Ask questions now, but soft. What happened to your head? His father asked. That scar. I was hit with a tomahawk, he started, then realized he'd have to tell the whole story. He did so, leaving out the worst parts. We saw you, his mother said, on the other side of the clearing when the shooting started. It was too far away from us to know it was you, but we saw you when you shot. Did you hit? He nodded. I fired. He went down. The second one clubbed me and I went down, all very fast. Then he told of Cooper and the other volunteers who had helped him, leaving out the part about the man screaming for days. He worked past the rest of it, telling about Caleb and Ma, leaving out the Hessians to the present. But how could you, his father started. You're 13. We'll have time for me to answer everything later, but now let me tell you what Abner said, and he told of the British line they might have to cross, the possible danger, the situation in Philadelphia. When he was done, he stood and picked up his rifle. We go again now, all day if we can. Farther, if we go slowly, I think it will be all right. Drink as much water as you can from each stream. The water helps. And he didn't add that water keeps the stomach full and so less hungry. Annie, you're in back, me in front. No talking, a soft whistle. As he set out, he knew his father was weak, but he worried that if he favored the weakness, it could get worse. He kept the pace all day, checking the compass every few minutes. They stopped often to drink from the small streams and creeks, and there were many, with short, silent breaks every hour and a half or so, until it was early evening and he saw his father weaving. They came to a small rise out of the moist lowlands, and he pulled up there on the back of the western side and stopped. No fire, he said softly. Cold camp. Father, you eat until you're full. Mother and Annie, hold it down to a little, just a taste. I'm going to check the back trail. Wait here for me. He trotted back the way he had come, stopping often to listen, smell, absorb. He didn't feel completely safe until he had gone half a mile and had not seen or heard anything. Then he moved back to where he'd left them and found them sitting back against trees. His father and Annie wrapped in a blanket roll, already dozing. We're clear, he whispered to his mother, his rifle across his lap. Get some sleep. She was studying him. You're so different. Grown. No, I'm the same. It's everything else that's changed. She shook her head. No, you've changed. Not in a bad way. You know things. See differently. Think differently. If I didn't know you, I don't think I would recognize you. It's like you've gone to some far place and come back a different person. But I love the new Samuel as much as I love the old, and I'm very glad. I'm so thankful that you're with us, to show us, to lead us. She held his hand. Good night, Mother. Good night, new Samuel. All right, today I want you to respond to what do you think she means by new Samuel and predict what's going to happen in the last chapter.